Have you ever met someone who seemed charming and trustworthy, only to realize later that they were playing you like a chess piece? Someone who could make you doubt your own reality, question your decisions, and somehow convince you to do things that weren't in your best interest. You've encountered a master manipulator, and today we're going to dissect exactly how they operate. I'm going to reveal the 3 hidden psychological traits that make manipulators so devastatingly effective. These aren't the obvious red flags everyone talks about. These are the subtle, almost invisible characteristics that allow them to slip past your defenses and control your thoughts, emotions, and actions without you even realizing it's happening. By the end of this video, you'll understand how manipulators think, why their tactics work so well on normal people, and most importantly, how to spot these patterns before you become their next victim. This isn't about becoming paranoid or distrusting everyone. It's about understanding the dark side of human psychology so you can protect yourself and the people you care about. Let's dive into the mind of a master manipulator. Before we reveal the 3 traits, we need to understand what makes manipulation so powerful. The reason manipulators are successful isn't because they're necessarily more intelligent than their victims. It's because they operate from a completely different psychological framework than normal people. Most of us assume that others think and feel the way we do. We project our own moral compass, empathy, and good intentions onto everyone we meet. This is called the false consensus effect, and it's actually a sign of psychological health. Normal people assume others have similar motivations because that's how healthy brains work. But manipulators exploit this assumption ruthlessly. They understand that good people expect good intentions, so they weaponize that expectation. They know that empathetic people will make excuses for bad behavior, so they give you just enough reason to doubt your instincts. They understand that trusting people want to believe the best in others, so they present themselves as exactly what you want to see. This is why manipulation feels so violating when you finally recognize it. It's not just that someone lied to you or used you. It's that they turned your own goodness against you. They made your strengths into weaknesses and your virtues into vulnerabilities. Now let's examine the 3 hidden traits that make this psychological exploitation possible. The first hidden trait of master manipulators is emotional detachment disguised as emotional intelligence. This is perhaps the most dangerous characteristic because it's so often mistaken for a positive quality. When you first meet a skilled manipulator, they often seem incredibly emotionally aware. They can read your mood instantly. They know exactly what to say when you're upset, and they seem to understand your feelings better than you understand them yourself. They appear to be the most empathetic person you've ever met. But here's what's really happening. They're not feeling your emotions with you. They're studying your emotions like a scientist studies lab rats. They're cataloging your emotional patterns, identifying your triggers, and mapping your psychological vulnerabilities. What looks like empathy is actually emotional intelligence without emotional connection. True empathy involves feeling what others feel. When you see someone in pain, part of you experiences that pain too. This emotional mirroring is what drives genuine compassion and connects us to other human beings. But manipulators have learned to observe and analyze emotions without actually experiencing them. This gives them a massive advantage. While you're genuinely feeling the emotions of the interaction, they're coldly calculating how to use those emotions to their advantage. While you're being vulnerable and authentic, they're performing vulnerability and authenticity to achieve a specific outcome. Think about it like this. Imagine you're playing poker against someone who can see all your cards, but you can't see theirs. That's what emotional detachment disguised as emotional intelligence creates. They know exactly what you're feeling and thinking, but you have no access to their true emotional state because they're not really having one. This is why manipulators are so good at saying exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. They're not speaking from genuine feeling. They're selecting the optimal emotional response based on their analysis of what will get them what they want from you. You can spot this trait by paying attention to inconsistencies in their emotional responses. Do they seem to turn emotions on and off like a switch? Do their emotional reactions feel slightly performative or practiced? Do they seem to understand your feelings too quickly or too perfectly? These can be signs that you're dealing with someone who studies emotions rather than experiences them authentically. The second hidden trait is strategic vulnerability. This is manipulation's most insidious weapon because it turns your protective instincts against you. Master manipulators understand that humans are wired to help those who seem vulnerable or in need. We're programmed to respond to distress signals, to offer support to those who appear to be struggling, and to protect those who seem weaker or more fragile than ourselves. This isn't a character flaw, it's actually one of humanity's greatest strengths. But manipulators weaponize this instinct. Strategic vulnerability involves carefully revealing weaknesses, traumas, or struggles in a way that's designed to trigger your protective response. The manipulator will share just enough of their painful backstory to make you feel sorry for them, but not so much that you become overwhelmed or suspicious. They might tell you about their difficult childhood, but frame it in a way that explains their current behavior. They might reveal a recent heartbreak that justifies their emotional unavailability. They might share a professional setback that explains why they need your help or resources. The vulnerability is real enough to be believable, but it's strategically deployed to achieve a specific reaction. What makes this so effective is that it hijacks your natural desire to be a good person. When someone shares their pain with you, your instinct is to comfort them, to make allowances for their behavior, and to give them the benefit of the doubt. Strategic vulnerability exploits this compassionate response by making you feel like you're helping someone heal when you're actually enabling their manipulation. The key difference between genuine vulnerability and strategic vulnerability is timing and outcome. Genuine vulnerability happens naturally in relationships as trust builds over time. Strategic vulnerability happens quickly, often in the early stages of a relationship, and it always serves a purpose for the manipulator. Does their vulnerability always seem to excuse problematic behavior? Does sharing their struggles always result in you giving them something they want? Do they seem to have a painful backstory for every situation that requires your understanding or assistance? These patterns suggest strategic rather than authentic vulnerability. Another red flag is emotional inconsistency around their supposed vulnerabilities. Someone who's genuinely dealing with trauma or pain will have complex, sometimes contradictory feelings about it. But strategic vulnerability often presents as clean, simplified narratives designed to evoke a specific response rather than genuine emotional processing. The third hidden trait is reality distortion through micro-adjustments. This is perhaps the most subtle and therefore most dangerous manipulative technique because it operates below the threshold of conscious awareness. Most people think of reality distortion as dramatic gaslighting, like someone telling you that a conversation never happened, or that you're crazy for remembering something differently. But master manipulators are far more sophisticated than that. They don't try to change your reality all at once because that would be too obvious and would trigger your defenses. Instead, they make tiny adjustments to your perception of reality over time. They slightly misremember conversations in their favor. They gradually shift the narrative about past events. They introduce small doubts about your judgment, your memory, or your perceptions. Each individual adjustment is so minor that it seems not worth arguing about, but collectively they add up to a completely distorted view of reality. This technique works because of how human memory actually functions. Our memories aren't like video recordings that we can replay exactly. They're reconstructed each time we access them, and they're influenced by new information, emotions, and suggestions. Manipulators exploit this psychological reality by consistently introducing small distortions that gradually shift your memory and perception. For example, they might say things like, "Remember when you said you didn't mind if I spent time with my ex? You were so understanding about it," when what you actually said was something much more cautious or conditional. They're not completely fabricating the conversation, they're just shifting the emphasis and meaning slightly in their favor. Over time, these micro-adjustments accumulate. You start to doubt your own memory and judgment. You begin to rely more heavily on their version of events because they seem so confident and specific about details. You gradually lose trust in your own perceptions and become dependent on their interpretation of reality. This is incredibly effective because it doesn't trigger the dramatic resistance that obvious gaslighting would provoke. Instead, it slowly erodes your confidence in your own mind while positioning the manipulator as the reliable narrator of your shared experiences. You can protect yourself from this technique by keeping records of important conversations and decisions. Write down significant interactions, save important text messages, and trust your initial instincts about events before they've been reinterpreted by someone else. If you find yourself constantly confused about what really happened or second-guessing memories that felt clear at the time, you might be experiencing reality distortion through micro-adjustments. Now that we've identified these 3 traits, let's talk about why normal people are so vulnerable to them and how you can build immunity to manipulation. The reason these techniques work so well is that they exploit the very qualities that make us good people. Empathy, compassion, trust, and the desire to help others are psychological strengths that create meaningful relationships and build healthy communities. Manipulators succeed by turning these strengths into vulnerabilities. This creates a difficult paradox. The only way to be completely immune to manipulation would be to become suspicious, emotionally detached, and self-protective in all relationships. But that would also make you incapable of forming genuine connections with trustworthy people. The goal isn't to become manipulative yourself or to shut down your capacity for trust and empathy. Instead, the goal is to develop what psychologists call emotional intelligence with boundaries. This means maintaining your capacity for genuine emotion and connection, while also developing the ability to step back and analyze relationship patterns objectively. Start by trusting your instincts but verifying your perceptions. If something feels off about someone's behavior, don't immediately dismiss that feeling just because you can't articulate exactly what's wrong. Your subconscious mind often picks up on manipulation tactics before your conscious mind can identify them. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you consistently feel drained, confused, or anxious after interactions with a particular person? Do you find yourself making excuses for their behavior or doing things you're not comfortable with? These emotional reactions often signal manipulation even when the specific tactics aren't obvious. Look for patterns rather than focusing on individual incidents. One instance of emotional manipulation might be a misunderstanding or a bad day, but consistent patterns of emotional detachment, strategic vulnerability, or reality distortion are serious red flags that warrant your attention. Set and maintain clear boundaries regardless of someone's backstory or apparent emotional needs. A person's trauma or struggles might explain their behavior, but they don't excuse manipulation or justify violating your boundaries. Healthy people will respect your limits even when they're dealing with their own difficulties. Develop a support network of trusted friends or family members who can offer outside perspectives on your relationships. Manipulators often isolate their victims from other sources of reality testing, so maintaining connections with people who care about your well-being is crucial for protection. Finally, remember that understanding manipulation tactics doesn't make you manipulative. Knowledge about these psychological patterns is a tool for protection, not exploitation. Use this information to build healthier relationships and protect yourself from those who would take advantage of your good nature. The world needs more empathetic, trusting, and compassionate people, not fewer. But it also needs people who are wise enough to protect themselves from those who would exploit these virtues. By understanding the hidden traits of master manipulators, you can maintain your capacity for genuine connection while building immunity to psychological exploitation. Master manipulators are successful because they understand psychology better than their victims do. But now you understand their methods too. You know how emotional detachment masquerades as emotional intelligence, how strategic vulnerability hijacks your protective instincts, and how reality distortion works through tiny adjustments over time. This knowledge is your shield against manipulation. Use it wisely, trust your instincts, and remember that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, genuine emotion, and shared reality. Anyone who violates these principles, regardless of how charming or seemingly vulnerable they appear, doesn't deserve access to your trust, your energy, or your life. What's one relationship in your life that you're going to examine more carefully after watching this video? Have you recognized any of these patterns in your own experiences? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this video helped you understand manipulation better, subscribe for more insights into the psychology of human behavior and protection.